Okay, welcome back. In our last video we spoke about classes, and I love classes. What it means you can do is kind of come up to your little style area here. You can define any class you want. So we define the style of primary, the class of primary and the class of large. And then we just went wild. We just added them to whatever we wanted. So if I scroll down, what did I do? I've got, the class of primary was added to the page title. The class of primary was also added to one of my buttons. The class of large was added to another button, and you can just kind of go wild and add these classes wherever you want. Now, when we're talking about classes, we also need to understand about IDs, because they kind of go hand in hand. They're like twins. They do pretty much the same thing, but IDs have got some kind of special qualities that you might want to use. So just to explain, when I made this class, I put a little period at the start, but if I was cheeky and I did a hashtag, then I've made an ID instead. So my ID is now primary, whereas if it was a period, it's a class. So that's the only difference between the two. Now, imagine if primary had been the ID that I'd made, then I wouldn't have written class here. I would have written ID. So I've made two changes there. I changed it from a class to an ID, and I obviously changed it from a period to a hashtag so that the two match up. And if I was to refresh my page right now, nothing's really going to change because they do the same thing. A class and an ID kind of do exactly the same thing. They just target a specific element or they isolate it. So let's just change that back to a class and save it and refresh it. Nothing's actually changed at all. So why would you want to use an ID rather than a class if they do the same thing? Well, I'll tell you what, I'll make it even worse. IDs, you can't reuse them. So whereas my primary class, I could just add it to anything. I added it to my page title, my button. If I was to make an ID, I can only use it once. So let's do this. Imagine if I made an ID and I'm going to call it, I'll tell you what, contact us button. Oh, I'm making an ID and I did a little period. Sorry, should be a hashtag. So if I make contact us button and open my little brackets, and we've done the color before, so let's do that. Color equals yellow. I kind of like yellow. Now, because I've made an ID, I can only use that once on the page. So if I scroll down, and I want to add an ID to one of my buttons, I can only do it on one of them. So I do ID equals, and then my speech marks. And what did I call it? Contact us button. Can't see if I can type. Contact us button. So there we go. I've now, if I save this and I refresh my page, that final button has yellow text, which makes sense because I styled an ID called contact us button and I added it just here. But like I said, I can't reuse this. I can't pick this ID up and say, right, I'm going to make all of my buttons, the contact us button, because that doesn't make any sense. An ID is just once per page. And you might think, why would I want to use something where I can only use it once per page? Surely I'm limiting myself. And in a way that is true. And that's why you'll find that you might use classes a lot more because you have a lot more freedom just to put them wherever you want. But the reason you might want to use an ID, one is it can help you actually organize your code. So if I come down here, you see that primary is just a style. It's the primary, color style and large font. Whereas that's a specific thing. I can look at that and say, oh, that's the contact us button. I remember that one. So it might help you organize your code. But really, there's two kind of main reasons. One is that when you create a hyperlink and you hyperlink to part of your website, if you want to scroll to a specific section of your website, then you use IDs. So imagine when I tell you what, let's just make a little cheeky hyperlink at the moment. So if I make a little hyperlink and I was to say that I want this to go to, let's do our Google again, because Google always works. And then I was to put hashtag, I don't know, contact us button. Now, I don't know if Google has a contact us button ID on their website, but if they did, this hyperlink wouldn't just go to google.com. It would go to google.com and it would scroll you down to the contact us button. And you can't do that with a class. You can only do that using IDs. So IDs are useful when you're creating hyperlinks to let someone scroll to a specific part of your page. And then also once you start learning JavaScript, you're going to want to use IDs to kind of target elements again. So nothing that interesting in this video. You just need to know what an ID is, because as we go on, I'm going to be using IDs, and so you need to know how that works. All right, I'll see you in the next video.